It is the Pete Sousa Show. We are live. 3:30 start today. Getting a late start. We had the Baylor basketball game today. I was filling in for John Morris on the radio, and before that, we filmed Inside the 12, the TV show for the Big 12. Welcome to King McClure today, a partner of mine at ESPN and of course Rogue Media. So King joined us. He's going to be the basketball analyst, and excuse me. That was a lot of fun. So it's been a busy morning, but I couldn't wait to get over here. I was thinking about man, this is a fun day. You get a little tired, but I mean, come on, you can't complain about this. Zach Burke on the wheels of steel, Zach Owen in the other room getting interviewed by Ava from Rogue Media Network. And we are presented by Slovacics. I didn't know Ray from Slovacics. His last name was Ray Broker. Like Ray Broker, like heating, I guess. Yeah. But they sold it since. Anyways, Ray's one of my heroes. Thanks to Ray. Of course, thanks to Crawford Austin Property, D1, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, and of course, First National Bank of Central Texas. I got to reach out to Dan, make sure he gets his rear end here tomorrow. So we'll talk Baylor basketball. We also have an interview with Mike Foreman, a Heisman voter, coming up in the second segment. And I want to start today with there's more news on this front. And I feel this is something we've all been through in one way or another. You know how I was talking to a guy today. This was cool because obviously my story of sobriety, I put it out there. Been sober for a while now, and it's I like to share it. I should share it more now, actually. I've kind of almost gotten away from it as I've gotten busier. But this guy, publicly I'm out there and as public as somebody like me can be. Anyways, the guy was like, hey, I really appreciate you sharing about your addiction. It impacts more people than you know. I totally was taken back, and I felt great about that any kind of message I'm putting out there is helping people. Of course, awesome. So another thing that impacts people a lot, bad relationships, right? If they don't impact you, they impact a friend of yours or a brother or a sister, and it can screw up a family. It can screw up professional life. It can just throw your life totally out of whack. I haven't heard anything. Of course I haven't, right? It's not like I'm wired into Bill Belichick's personal life. But the closer we get to this North Carolina thing becoming official, my brain, I'm ready to short circuit, smoke coming out of my ears, I just, it doesn't make sense to me. And again, I always say it, there is so much that we don't know. And I understand that. So I'm going into this eyes wide open, knowing that there's just so much I don't know. However, I do find it interesting. I feel you ever have a friend, you ever been that friend who is moving quickly in a relationship and you're making bad decisions that really will impact your life long term. Now, I'm not saying that Bill Belichick's girlfriend is the battery behind this operation or this decision-making process that could land him at North Carolina. I'm not saying that. I am saying that I feel Bill Belichick going down the line with North Carolina is watching a buddy with right now he's flirting with North Carolina, and he's all of a sudden gotten hot and heavy, and you never would have pictured these two people together, right? You're like, whoa, wait, what is he doing with North Carolina? Really? Bill Belichick, Ramses? Doesn't make any sense. Bill Belichick was just winning 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, remains, should be, I don't want to say anything the wrong way, but he should be working in rare air. I feel North Carolina is a step down, and I feel he's moving too fast. And at the end of the day, I do feel this will not happen. You have my word, will not happen. I feel we've run into too many snags and too much back and forth. And if it is potential, if there is a potential that Bill Belichick is I'm doing this to get other other offers or other interests. Like he's probably getting that right now. But I want to give you the absolute latest. This is from ESPN, and it is from Pete Thamel. So it says that North Carolina is working to close a deal with Bill Belichick to make the six-time Super Bowl champ the Tar Heels coach. But sources tell ESPN there are still issues on both sides. Sources added that the ball is in Belichick's court and the North Carolina officials are on board with him becoming the coach. A resolution is expected in the near future. Like, give me a break on that timetable, the near future. Okay, now this is where it gets so much fun. I love this stuff. Among the issues right now, Bill Belichick's son and current Washington defensive coordinator, Stephen Belichick, they want to get him to be the defense coordinator in North Carolina. Other issues, North Carolina's name, image, and likeness resources, Belichick's salary, and resources for the staff and reporting structure. Good call by Cam. He mentioned yesterday when I was on his show that Bill Belichick had submitted like a 400-page document to North Carolina, basically saying what he would need to make it work. That's very efficient by Belichick, right? Very, very smart. I mean, we're talking about Bill Belichick. Like he's saying, hey, here's what we'll do. Here's what we'll do. The hiring of Belichick, 72, would resonate as one of the most stunning and compelling moves in college football history. Listen to that. He worked in the NFL in some capacity from 75 until his divorce with the Patriots in 2023. So we're talking about nonstop, like 50 years almost. The transfer portal opened on Monday, so the Tar Heels roster is potentially in flux. Belichick spoke in hypotheticals about what his college program could look like. This is when he was talking to Pat McAfee, stressing if he took the college job, he observed that modern college football looks a lot more like the NFL. So, like, I still don't think this is going to happen. I feel like at the last moment, this deal will crumble. And I think it's because, one, Bill Belichick is asking a lot. And two, I think that Bill Belichick is either fielding phone calls from other organizations, dare I say universities, but other organizations saying, hey, I would have to imagine if you were an NFL team that was really interested in him, you're calling him right now and you're saying, hey, hang in there. If you can, like we've got something lined up for you. Maybe he needs a guarantee. I don't know. Back to my original point, I feel like a buddy of mine has met a girl who in one way or another, like totally moves him and has him losing his mind. And he's about to make a really bad decision. Like, oh, I think I'm going to move in with her. Or oh, I think I'm going to marry her. See, right now it's all fun and games because he's just flirting with North Carolina. So it's like, it's no big deal. Remember, Bill Belichick was a guy, I don't know if it was once or twice. Remember, he took the Jets job for a day and then turned around and said, I don't want it. Right. And wrote on his resignation. I resign as head coach of the NYJ or as HC of the NYJ. Wrote it out on a cocktail napkin. Okay. And turned it into the Jets. And that was his way of resigning. I feel like there was another episode where he was like head coach for a day. I could be wrong. Oh, no, he was head coach of the Patriots for a day when Bill Belichick was suspended or something. There was some trade or something that happened that went. What happened? Oh, Belichick. Parcells left the Patriots to go to the Jets. That's what it was. So there's a lot going on here. And I really am hoping that Bill Belichick does not take this job. And I have a lot of skin in the game, man. Like, I love football. I love pro football. I know college football. I cover college football. I think that, as I said yesterday, Bill Belichick would get lost in the shuffle at the college football level and being a head coach. And the latest news has us headed to the altar now with Belichick and the possibility that this situation would become a reality. I don't worry. I don't worry about his legacy being tarnished. It's impossible to tarnish a legacy that includes 6 Super Bowls. and possibly the best dynasty in pro football history. You can't take that away from anybody, especially when you're 72. That's another thing too. Is he too old? I don't think so. I believe like football is football, and I think that he'll be able to get through to his players. It's not that deep. I don't think. I think that he'll get guys around him that can recruit. So I want to see. So I'm looking now a little more about the portal opening. So here's more of what Belichick said. I want to convey this to you. This is ESPN. If I was in a college program, the college program would be a pipeline to the NFL for the players that had the ability to play in the NFL, Belichick said. It will be a professional program, training, nutrition, scheme, coaching, and techniques that would transfer to the NFL. So this is another thing where I think you can get North Carolina. They put together an emergency board of governors meeting or whoever, and it was discussed that the quotes like that don't really favor higher education. And I get it. Like, it is what it is now. Like John Calipari is like, hey, we don't just get guys drafted. This is when he was at Kentucky, but I'm sure he can say it at Arkansas too, because it's still him. But we don't just get guys drafted. We get all-stars. We'll turn you into an all-star. You know, Bill Belichick is going to say now, hey, this is like a program that will get you ready for pro football. But a provost doesn't want to hear that. Clearly, the Bill Belichick, if he gets a chance to talk to the provost, which he already has, but if he gets a chance to talk to a leader like that, he will have a way of convincing him and kind of smoothing over those rough edges. But it is a real departure for a school like North Carolina. It would be their first leap into, we're just going straight, like we're going after it. You know, even the North Carolina basketball team, if you remember years ago, this is pre-NIL, all that stuff, there was like a bunch of guys who were taking electives that were like classes that were like total jokes. And it was a huge deal in North Carolina because, like, far be it for North Carolina to commit like some kind of educational sin like that to let their basketball team take easy classes, which is like, you know, it's an open bar as far as that's concerned all around the country. That's the fact of the matter is, like, let's just get these guys to go to class in a lot of places before they depart for another school or possibly a pro career. So that would be a real come to Jesus conversation amongst educators at North Carolina. Like, we have a guy saying that he was basically going to run a pro football program here. At no time, and I'm sure he will use the correct language, but at no time, I was reading this quote and listening to this conversation earlier, and I thought at some point he will come in on the back end and say, you know, young men and their growth off the field and education is a paramount concern for me headed into a possible opportunity like the head coach of North Carolina. No, I'll read the coach again. If I was in a college, the quote again, if I was in a college program, the college program will be a pipeline to the NFL for the players that had the ability to play in the NFL. It will be a professional program, training, nutrition, scheme, coaching, and techniques that would transfer to the NFL. I.e., if you come to play for me, I'll put you in the NFL, which is a great way to get some of the best players in the country to buy into your system. Still don't want to see it happen. Still, ultimately, am not sure that it would even work, but we're going to find out. And when we find out, I mean, we could be finding out here in the next couple hours. Let's see the most recent piece of news on this, as I want to see if I can get us the most up-to-date before we run to a break here. No, it still says the ball's in his court. Albert Breer tweeted an hour ago, ex-Patriots coach Bill Belichick in North Carolina have worked through the financial terms the last 24 hours in hopes they want a deal to get done by today. Sources tell me and Pat Forty. An emergency board of trustees meeting would need to be held to approve it. Okay, so that's the deal. So we'll find out what happens. I'm very interested to continue to follow this story. I'm loving following this story. To move to college, there's a lot of talk as we head into the playoff. We do have a little bit of a slow time. I think the first bowl is on the 14th, and that same night we will have the Heisman Trophy. in New York City in the downtown. I don't think it's at the Downtown Athletic Club anymore, but I wanted to say that real bad. And the Heisman Trophy is going to be won by Travis Hunter. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that, in my opinion. Travis Hunter, we talked about this morning on that Inside the 12 show. Over the course of the season, Colorado football played 1,700 snaps, right? Over the course of the entire season. Travis Hunter was on the field for 87% of those. And he was playing at an elite level on both sides of the ball, right? He's up for the Bednarik Award, which, to my understanding, is the Defensive Player of the Year in college football. He's up for the Biletnikoff Award, which is the award for the best wide receiver in college football. And he's up for the Heisman Trophy, which is the award for the best player in college football. Hang in there with me 1 second. Let's see this. I want to see the odds. Heisman Trophy odds right now. All right, betting favorites. Here we go. Travis Hunter is minus 2,000. So there you have it, pal. You want a long shot? Ashton Genty, plus 800. Dylan Gabriel, plus 3,500. Cam Ward, plus 50,000. Yeah, and you want to talk long shot? That's pretty cool. So there you have it right there. Travis Hunter's going to win going away. Like we said months ago, I don't think it's that complicated. No Shedeur Sanders at the ceremony. No Cam Scatteraboo. But I think it's really cool that Travis Hunter is going to win this award. And I think the only downside of it is that Colorado is the most prolific, explosive team in college football. One of them, but they're not in the college football playoff. And they have nobody to thank but themselves. They are to blame. They lost that game to Kansas on the road to Kansas, which they should have won. So now we've got the Valero Alamo Bowl between Travis Hunter, Colorado, and Jacob Retzloff and BYU. And King McClure and I had the chance to talk to Fox Sports' Tim Brando today. And Brando was talking about the fact that BYU is going to have to limit explosive plays, which is, plays of 20 yards or more. I think he's 1,000% right, but I don't think they'll be able to. I think that BYU has gotten worse throughout the season. I think that Colorado has gotten better. Not that we want to sit here and wax poetic about the Alamo Bowl, but I think Colorado will win that game going away. Those are just a couple teams I know a little bit about. I talked about Baylor basketball earlier this morning. Jeremy Roach is still out. Obviously, spectacular player, transferred from Duke, played in a Final Four for Duke, won an ACC championship. He is sort of like the rock so far of this team, even though he's a transfer. He does it all. And when he's not out on the court, you really, really notice it. It did not start against Abilene Christian and did not start this game. Now, the good news of all that is that a player like Rob Wright, a freshman out of Philly, who sat up here earlier this year, and we interviewed him, and he is your typical Baylor guy. Just like you're around him and you're like, how can this guy be that good at anything and still be this kind and humble? But like, that's just kind of how it goes around here. And so Rob Wright played today. I think he had 13 assists and 14 points. And he broke a record for freshmen for assists in a game. And he's just a special player. And VJ Edgecombe, if you didn't see it, I want you to Google it. I should have sent this to Zach, but I forgot to send it to him, a clip to show you. He had a follow-up dunk today that was like stuff of Allen Iverson. Like truly, I think he took off. It was a missed three-pointer in the second half, probably like with 6 minutes left. And I think he took off from beyond 15 feet. And he grabbed the ball with two hands and he flushed it. And again, like, you will not have to search hard to find this highlight. You will see it on SportsCenter later on tonight if that's your thing, or very easily. You will come across it just scrolling. And this is like the version of happy scrolling, not doom scrolling, because this is some good news. It's absolutely amazing. Every time VJ Edgecombe, the freshman from the Bahamas, preseason Big 12 player, Rookie of the Year, is out on the floor, he is making unbelievable plays. And he is a reason to go watch Baylor. Now, nobody can go watch Baylor basketball for another 16 days because they don't play until 2 days after Christmas. They have some work to do. We'll talk more about Baylor and the Bears and the experience today with boots on the ground calling the game But I do want to come back on the other side of this break. This is something we captured yesterday with Heisman voter Mike Foreman. He is out of Victoria, and this is a cool little window into. He writes for the Victoria Advocate. He has been a Heisman voter back since 1997, I believe. And, he doesn't work at the USA Today, but he covers college football and high school football with the best of them. And he gives us a window into what it's like actually to vote, how he became a voter, the craziest thing he was ever given as a PR campaign, and some of the most difficult decisions he's had to make being a Heisman voter. And we also talked to him a little bit about SMU football, Pony XS. We'll be back after this. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, rolls on.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
By asking you this, who's the best high school football player you've ever covered?
Wow, that's a good question. Let me see. I could say, I covered Robert Stray when he was at Cuero. He was phenomenal running back. Let's see who else I've seen that was real. Dalton Brooks is now at Texas A&M's another one.
Yeah, he's terrific.
Yeah, he was something exceptional in high school. Of course, I covered Bay City, so I saw a lot of good athletes out there. I don't know if I could say one guy was the best. It's hard to say.
All right, well, we can move to modern day. I saw on your Twitter profile, you're a UCLA and SMU graduate. So does that mean, how do you feel about the Mustangs?
I feel like I'm glad they got in. I was a little worried there after they lost to Clemson. But I feel like, that the fact that they came back like that and almost won, I think that's what got them in there.
Well, your experience too. What's your relationship like with that program? Were you in school around like the Craig James, Eric Dickerson, Ron Meyer, those guys?
Actually, I was before that, but I did cover the Cotton Bowl where they beat Pitt, and that when Dickerson and James were there, and it was pretty bizarre because when we went after the game, to go to the locker room to do interviews, they kept us out of there for a while. And the word is the boosters were in there taking care of things.
Were you surprised as someone who had been there just a handful of years before, and now you're covering this team that is the best in college football? Sort of a rags to riches story. No pun intended there, but the reality.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when I was there, they were decent, but never really great. And yeah, when they started getting athletes like they did, it was pretty obvious something was going on. But they weren't the only ones doing it. So, in fact, I think it's pretty well known that the Trans Am that Dickerson got came from Texas A&M. So, yeah, they were obviously paying those guys. I mean, they did the 30 for 30 on it. And, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but, that 30 for 30 was outstanding. Pony XS.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 15 years old now. It's aged very well.
Yeah, it did. And still to this day, Dickerson will not say what he got or where he got it from. But he's made light of it though, and the fact that now we have it's legal. Now with NIL you pay for it. So it's kind of ironic, actually.
It's absolutely ironic, and lo and behold, here we go. Right, we got that nice Texas money has come back through again, and build a nice program there. I know you're a Heisman voter, and
yeah.
So how do you prepare to cast your vote? How much legwork goes in? How much watching goes into it? Because you just mentioned you got 4 high school football games, big time playoff games tonight that you're or this week that you're covering all on Thursday. How do you find the time to dig in to some of these Heisman candidates?
Well, what I do, I'll tell you the truth. I usually don't start paying real close attention until later in the season. I mean, I've always seen those lists and odds going in of Heisman favorites, but I mean, experience has told me that doesn't mean anything because you never know what can happen. I mean, a guy can get hurt or a team's really bad. You just don't know. So about, maybe unless obviously someone has a great game like an Ashton Genty, then you notice. But I kind of really pay attention, and I like to wait. The deadline to vote is actually the Monday after the conference championship game, and I tend to wait until at least that Sunday because I like to see. A lot of times it's come down to who I think performs best in the championship game.
So is that when you waited this year till then?
Yeah, although I can't say publicly who I voted for because that's a violation. And if I do say it, then they can actually kick me out. But I will say this, that I had a pretty good idea before that.
Okay.
Towards the end of the year, I had a pretty good idea. And nothing that happened on those championship games changed my mind.
It really speaks to you and your career as a journalist, the fact that you're involved in the Heisman Trophy and you have a vote. What was one of the more difficult decisions you can remember having to make?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly. My first vote was Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning. I mean, just look at those two guys. They're Hall of Famers in the NFL. Tremendous careers in college. And I actually voted for Charles Woodson, who won the award. It was tough, though. I mean, Peyton Manning. That was probably the most difficult of all of it.
Is there a reward you get from being a voter? Like, and I'm talking about, right, like internally, like something like, I would imagine there's some fulfillment there.
Yeah, there is. I mean, especially, if your guy wins and you feel good about it, there's no compensation per se. Uh, Usually, what in the past they've sent like T-shirts, or they sometimes what they'll do is they'll give you a voucher for donor's choice, which goes to schools around the nation. You just go on the website, and then they give you a $25 or $50 voucher, and you can give that money to any school you choose, which I think is kind of neat.
That is cool.
I like. Yeah, so like I've given like to schools around them, usually in my area that I cover, that have a need for a teacher will ask for something. But yeah, it feels good when you pick the winner. Although I mean, even sometimes, and I can't think of really any examples offhand, but even when you don't pick the winner, it's okay because you realize. I mean, like. You look at this year, for instance, and you've got Travis Hunter of Colorado and Genty from Boise State. And then, of course, a lot of people will point to Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. They're number one. They're seeded number one going into the playoffs. There's a lot of good candidates. So, and you always wonder, too, like, I'm wondering about Travis Hunter because, I mean, let's face it, Deion Sanders is pretty polarizing. And I don't know if people that don't like Deion, would maybe not vote for Travis Hunter because of that. I hope not. I hope they can overlook that. But, let's face it, we're human beings and bias is going to figure into this.
Yeah, we are. I think we may have seen some of that with the voting for Colorado as a team this year. I felt like earlier in the year they probably should have been ranked a little higher than at certain times where they were, but it all comes out in the wash the right way. What's at least in my opinion, what is the most creative Heisman campaign you've ever received?
Wow.
There's even if there was one, I'm sure there were guys who probably weren't even in your top three, but the PR campaign might be a number one.
Yeah, and that's interesting because this year the only thing I got was from a DVD from Boise State on Ashton Genty. I don't know if it's because the paper I work for is not that big, but I've gotten some, but not a lot of promotional material. I'm sure the bigger papers get all that stuff, but I don't know. Maybe they just target, a specific audience or whatever.
We got to let them know about the Victoria Advocate. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, it's nice to get that stuff, but I'm not going to let it affect my vote because you got to pick who you think is the best player.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, or maybe not. And when you say the best player, it doesn't always mean the guy that's going to be the best pro player. This is an award based on his performance. I mean, some of the Heisman winners have really never done that much in pros. I'll give you an example from UCLA, Gary Diva. I mean, he never did anything in the pros, really. So, but if he was the best player that year, then that's the person who should get the award.
Was there ever any real difficult decision you had to make, in a sense, where you voted for a guy and you thought to yourself, well, I'm an outlier here. Like, I don't think he's got any chance, but I'm still gonna vote for him. I feel very right about this.
Usually not my first vote, but sometimes like my third. You vote for three people. You vote for first, second, and third, and even this year, without saying who, the third person I voted for is not among the finalists. So he was kind of an outlier.
Was it?
although
I don't want you to say it, but maybe it was Cam Scadaboo. I thought that was unfortunate that he wasn't. He's not going
yeah,
to New York.
it wasn't Scatterboot, but
Okay.
look what happened. I think he's just all of a sudden caught people's eyes. Lately. I mean, obviously with his performance in the Big 12 championship game,
Yeah.
that obviously opened some eyes. But no, I'll tell you the most difficult one, and to this day I think maybe I got it wrong, was when it was Reggie Bush and Vince Young, and I voted for Reggie Bush, and I kind of regret that. And I think maybe I should have voted for Vince Young.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Reggie Bush was a great player, and even before all that came out about them buying his parents a house or whatever. But I mean, Vince Young, I mean, they beat him in the championship game. So, he has a pretty good case.
Yeah, he sure does, and it's interesting. That leads me to my next question. When you see a player like Vince Young just execute and perform under the utmost of pressure, right, with ice water in his veins, that's got to be a moment where you're like, geez, he maybe deserves this.
Yeah, there's no doubt what you said. That's why I like to wait till the end, because although now it's changed a little bit where the conference championships don't mean as much as they used to. But that's why I always used to like to wait, because I like to see how those players performed in the big games. And that's, to me, that we've taken the same approach in high school when we pick our MVP of our team after the year, because we usually go with a guy from a team that has had a lot of success, unless, like for instance, like a Jonathan Brooks who played at UT. He was at Hallettsville, and he was our MVP, even though Shiner won the state championship and Hallettsville lost in the championship game. But, sometimes you have an athlete like a Jonathan Brooks that just stands out so much that it's obvious.
All right, last question for you. How did you become a Heisman voter?
Yeah, that's a funny story, because back in the day So he called me and said, "Hey man, we have an opening. Would you like to be a Heisman voter?" And I said, "Well, what are the requirements?" He said, "Well, you just have to vote." And well, I could do that. That's how it started. And I've done it ever since. And hopefully I'll do it until I retire, which, I keep saying every year, this might be the year, but who knows?
It's funny. You met once they ask you if you want to vote, you've already met the requirements, right? Like you met Kim, you checked out. So that's it. You've met the requirements. Then all you really have to do is vote. He's not asking anybody, right, if they want to vote.
No, in fact, I think the chairman is Robert Cessna from the Bryan College Station Eagle, and the sports there. So I think Cease is now because Kim is no longer working at the Waco paper, but I think he's in charge, and so he would be the one now if there was a vacancy, say, to reach out to someone.
I lied. I got one more for you. As a sports writer, because that's a profession that I think has almost been lost in the shuffle, is just how important you are. Like, especially guys who maybe will dig a little extra on some stories and really report what's going on in towns maybe where we don't know what's happening. How much does it mean to you that sports writers still get to decide, big honors like this, or at least have a huge hand in it? That's pretty cool still.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is actually, other than the sports writers where we pick a high school all-state team, this is really the only thing I do. It's neat. I mean, I think it's important though that, if you're going to do it, you need to do the research. And you try to stay away from biases. I mean, obviously, like for instance, my son went to OU. So like when, Baker Mayfield or something is up there, he's probably wanting me to vote for Baker Mayfield. And he deserved it. But, or Kyler Murray. But you really do have to be careful and make sure you say, is this the guy that deserves it? And not just because, I went to school there or someone went to school there or I like that team kind of thing. But yeah, it's neat. And I hope, like other writers that like vote on the Hall of Fame and things like that, although that's much more exclusive. Yeah. And to tell you the truth, I know now there are quite a few voters for the Heisman, and I know like the public votes, and I think that counts like 5% or something. But so yeah, there's still a pretty big pool. There's former Heisman winners, there's writers. I think there's I don't know if coaches can vote or not, but it's a pretty big pool of people that are voting.
Well, it's a pretty big deal, and I respect your work, and I wanted to get a chance to chat with you about this, especially this time of year. So I can't thank you enough, Mike. I know obviously how busy you are, so thank you so much for sharing some time today.
Okay, I appreciate it, Pete. Take care.
All right, there you go, Mike Foreman, Heisman voter with the Victoria Advocate during the day, and you can catch us after this break. We'll step aside. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. Let me start.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
Oh, here we are. We're back. Pete Sousa alongside Zach Burke. The Pete Sousa Show continues this afternoon on a beautiful day here in Central Texas. I mentioned how earlier in the day I was able to fill in for John Morris on the radio side for the Baylor basketball game against Norfolk State. And Zach, we got that clip ready? All right, so there was a moment in the game where it was one of those instances where you're like, one, did that just happen? And two, I can't believe it did just happen, and I saw it in person. VJ Edgecombe, another highlight reel play. Zach, let's check it out.
Love kick out to Nunn. Oh, slam for Edgecombe.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. Air VJ, you better watch out and you better block out or you going.
That's our boy King McClure right there, who was alongside Lincoln Rose for the call on TV. I mean, good golly, Miss Molly. The only thing I can compare it to is Allen Iverson, when there is something innate about attacking and also the intuition with timing. Like, that's not just athletic ability. That's having a nose for the game and know-how and a feel for the game that is second to none, that is just about as unique as the athletic ability is. One more time on that clip, Zach. We got to see it again.
Love kick out to Nunn.
Oh,
slam for Edgecombe.
oh my goodness. Oh my. Air VJ, you better watch out and you better block out or you going.
Like, my only problem with that is that it happened at like 12:30 in the afternoon. That's like too much for kids. Like, they shouldn't, that should be reserved for like games from 9 o'clock Eastern on. That was too scary. Norfolk State, by the way, they had a lot of fight in them. And the game was close for a while. They couldn't miss threes, but then they went to the locker room at halftime. Baylor did, and just decided that they were going to ratchet up the pressure defensively. And that was something that Norfolk State, the Spartans, just couldn't keep up with out of the MEAC, obviously Norfolk, Virginia. One of the things that I'm starting, a vibe I'm picking up on, and I did personally today after the game, I interviewed Josh Ojanwuna with my man Pat Nunley, who has been a color analyst for Baylor basketball games for 44 years. He was alongside Frank Fallon. If you don't know who Frank Fallon was, you definitely heard him calling national TV games. And if you don't remember him from that, you definitely heard his voice announcing the starting lineups at the Final Four for decades. That was Frank Fallon, and a Central Texas product, Waco product, Baylor product, total legend. So Pat Nunley's worked with Pat Nunley has worked with Frank Fallon and with John Morris. John Morris was not there. Again, another star-studded Baylor broadcaster. J-Mo was in New York receiving an award, the Chris Schenkel Award in broadcasting excellence. So if you know who Chris Schenkel is, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it gets to elite broadcasters. So back to present day, Pat Nunley and I caught up with Josh Ojanwuna after the game. Baylor power forward. He had 16 points. I think about like 9 or 10 rebounds. He had a career high 14 rebounds against UConn. He's been playing really well lately, and Baylor's going to need him to play well, not only on the block defensively, which is something I think you can expect from him, right? The defense travels. That is, you can count on that from Josh Ojanwuna. One thing that is starting to percolate a little bit is his offensive game, and Pat talked about that before the game, that Josh was going to have to become a threat offensively, and he was today. And I think he'll continue to be so going forward. We're literally watching this dude just get better before our eyes, which is the case a lot of times, especially early in the season, or in both cases, somebody with Josh, maybe earlier in their career. So we talked with Josh after the game, and here was one thing that Baylor fans can hang on to that I found super interesting. He mentioned the fact that I said, what are you looking forward to doing for the rest of the year? You got the holidays coming up, you have a break. I said, but when you get into conference play, December 31st against Utah, like, what are you guys looking to accomplish? What excites you? And he said, proving people wrong. And now, so here's what Baylor has going for themselves now. And I'm not saying they can ride this all the way to the Final Four of the championship, but it can definitely get you through once you get healthy, right? Because you need to get Jeremy Roach back, who is injured right now in concussion protocol. So it's not like he'll be out forever. Once you get Jeremy Roach back, now you're looking at a situation and a team who basically has a chip on its shoulder. That's Josh said so much directly to myself and Pat Nunley after the game. He said, we want to prove people wrong. We have a chip on our shoulder now. People are looking at us because now Baylor, as far as the top 25 is concerned, they're receiving votes this week. This is a team that is always in the top 25. It's the first time they've been out of the top 25 during a basketball season, and I can't remember how long. But the teams that they lost to, Gonzaga, top 5, Tennessee, number 1, and UConn, defending national champs, 2-time national champs. So, I mean, it's a murderer's row of a schedule that they put together. Last year, Baylor had the most difficult schedule in the country. This year, it looks like they're trying to accomplish the same feat. and the schedule just couldn't be any more difficult out of the gate. But, as long as you survive it, right, and you can last into Big 12 play, I think you're in pretty good shape. And I think we're seeing that from Baylor right now. Not only are they kind of rounding into form once they get healthy, and they will have plenty of time. Again, we mentioned 16 days between now and their next game, which is on December 27th. And that game is, forgive me, but it's not against an opponent that scares you at all. It's a non-con game. And then after that, they'll play Utah on December 31st at home. We talked to Scott Drew after the game, and it's great. Scott Drew's the man. He right away, you talk to him about conference play, and the first thing he talks about is Baylor football. They have a game that afternoon or that evening against LSU in the Texas Bowl. That's in Houston. And he said everybody needs to go to Houston to support the football team. But if you don't go to Houston, you need to come here to the Foster Pavilion to support the basketball team. And I think he's got a pretty good point. Their first game is against Utah. I did a Utah game on Saturday night. Utah really right now isn't that good. They're just not. But if you like Baylor basketball and you're interested, it will be the return of Caleb Lohner, who we talked about ad nauseum on Monday, and Miro Little, who is nasty. Point guard from Finland. He has played with the Finnish national team all summer long, and he is awesome. The only reason he didn't play for Baylor last year was because of guys like Ray J. Dennis and guys like Jaden Nunn. And this year, again, with VJ Edgecombe, the best freshman in the country possibly, and now you got Jeremy Roach. Like, where were you going to play? And then freshman Rob Wright. So if you want to play point guard, you got to go play somewhere else. Utah, not a bad option. Miro Little, a very good point guard. So let's stick with basketball here as we get set to wrap things up. So it was just earlier reported that LeBron James is not going to be with the LA Lakers, and LeBron is not going to be with the Lakers. They said he stepped away for right now because of personal reasons, which is like, okay, interesting, but probably not. He just maybe needs a minute. But then earlier today, Brian Windhorst talked about the fact that the Golden State Warriors would still be very interested in LeBron if he were to come available on the trading market. And when Wendy talks, I listen, especially when it's LeBron. Like, Brian Windhorst is not just that guy who covers LeBron. Back in the day when I was doing PR for the Sixers and for the Hornets, he was with the Cleveland Plain Dealer following LeBron around. And it was known at the time that he was the guy that covered LeBron in high school that now is with the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Big untucked shirt guy. Now he's all tucked in on TV all the time. But Windhorst brings it. And his report today talked about the fact, like, LeBron and Golden State, like, that could be a possibility. And it's not like him just to start stuff. Now let's go back to, this is, I guess, a month and a half ago, maybe less, LeBron talking about, and this is so LeBron, right? Subliminal messaging here, talking about exactly what it would mean to him to play once again now. I say once again because they won a gold medal over the summer together, to play for Steve Kerr and with Steph Curry. Could he do it again? Let's take a listen.
It was everything and more. I was super excited to be able to finally team up with him, in a win or die type atmosphere, and that's what it was. Being a part of Olympics, and it was everything that I dreamed of and inspired to want to be a part of that team along with Steph. Great memories, something that I remember from my basketball career for the rest of my life, for sure.
And the circumstances of you with the Lakers and with the Warriors, like, do you think, could it ever happen again?
What?
You guys be teammates?
Oh, I have no idea.
All right. So that was LeBron. And the reason I'm looking intently at my computer is because we have an update. Paul Feinbaum has just reported on SportsCenter, among other sources, that Bill Belichick is finalizing the deal to become the head coach at North Carolina. Let's see what Zach Burke thinks about this. Zach, you got the little wry smile on over there. What say you about this?
I think that I'm interested to see how it works out, because this is a guy who is very much NFL and doesn't seem like, the coaches that you follow, that it's like, I don't know how this is going to transition to the college game. And Bill Belichick's game is one that just from the surface makes me think that way. But if he has this laundry list of things that he asked them to be okay with and they're okay with it, then I don't know, maybe he has a plan in place. Granted, I'm still very interested to see how it transitions fully into like a North Carolina in that college, that college game, because making a team a feeder for an NFL team, like I get that makes sense. And yeah, maybe the game as a whole is a little bit more like the NFL than it used to be, but I still think it's a completely different animal from college football compared to the NFL. Of like just the way like they're student athletes, so just everything about the whole thing, I think it's just a little bit of a different beast. And so I am very interested to see if with it going through of how he will work. It makes me think of like when Saban made the jump to the NFL. Like, yeah, there was 1 year it was solid, but halfway through the next year he was gone. Like he just wasn't built for the NFL.
And he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, and again, this will be a little different, but he wasn't allowing people, like sports writers weren't allowed to be at the facility for any amount of extra time,
which
like,
is
where they always were in the past.
Which seems like a very college head coach move. So I'm interested to see what's the opposite of that then. Like what's Belichick going to do that's like an NFL coach move in this, college football type program that might ruffle some feathers.
My instant reaction, I'm like upset. I really am. And because I just think that we lose as America, as fans of football. I think that he will get lost in the shuffle by, again, and I love the CW. Anytime that I could do play-by-play for a game on the CW, if I don't have a conflict, I'll be there. Would love it. However, when you're talking about Bill Belichick and someone of that ilk, God, buried in week 6 against Wake Forest on the CW, that sucks for us as fans.
It does for us, but I think for him, he might like that. Like, I understand that he came out. He still, to me, doesn't feel like a guy that loves doing all the media and everyone.
No.
Like, I know he does. Like, he's doing it a lot more with the Mannycast and all the draft.
Pat McAfee.
Exactly. Like, I know he's doing it more, but he still, to me, doesn't feel like fully comfortable. So maybe getting lost on that, 2:30, one of the 2:30 games randomly on the CW might be what he's want. He just wants to go out there and coach football.
That's a good point, Zach. That's a very good point. I blame this as we wrap up. I blame this on Pat McAfee. This is totally your fault, Pat McAfee. As fans, we will no longer have access to Bill Belichick on your show. We won't even be able to watch him on Inside the NFL on the CW. The only time we'll see him on the CW now is when North Carolina is playing Wake Forest at 11 a.m. Central Time next fall, week 7, which is all well and good. I love the ACC and I love football. I love calling games when I'm invited to do so. However, as a football fan, I want Bill Belichick in the big show. I wanted Bill Belichick coaching either the Cowboys or the New York Giants, not going to North Carolina where his services will be wasted. And after 3 years, we're all going to wake up and realize this didn't work. And guess what happens in 3 years? Bill Belichick is 75. So that's it. So if this is going to be your last act, one, I'm sure Bill Belichick knows what he's doing. 2, congratulations, you're back in coaching, Bill Belichick, and you've got so much now on your plate with the college football program that, like, at times even you, Yoda, may feel overwhelmed with what is going on within your college football program. There's going to be stuff you don't know about that could actually come around to get you in trouble. Keep that in mind too. As a fan, I think Bill Belichick can handle all that. For all I know, he's going to be in the college football playoff next year and win a championship. And if that's the case, I'm on board. My biggest fear is that we lose Bill Belichick to a sea of other football news and college football drama and all the fun stuff that we get caught up in game day, as opposed to every Sunday, Bill Belichick stalking the sidelines in front of millions upon millions of people. And doing that for the Cowboys or the Giants would have given me as much Bill Belichick as I wanted. And I always want more because the guy is an absolute legend. That'll do it for today's show. I'm not just pissed because I said he wasn't going to take the job or it wasn't going to happen. See how long it takes me to completely bungle a prediction? It took all of 25 minutes that time. I said he wasn't going to take the job or it wouldn't materialize, and here we are. So congratulations to North Carolina. You know what? Maybe tomorrow we'll try to have Scott Williams on, North Carolina basketball guy, just to see what Scott says about this move and how the North Carolina alumni is feeling about it, because I can guarantee, that's another thing too. I don't mind North Carolina. I certainly like North Carolina more than Duke. They're going to be pounding their chest about this one. This is like a big victory for North Carolina. So buckle up and get ready for that one if you're a Duke fan or if you don't like North Carolina. If you like me, we'll be back again tomorrow. Regular time, 1 o'clock. Thank you for hanging with us on the special start time today, 3:30, because we got bumped because of a couple obligations. But yeah, Zach, way to go. Slovacic's. Please stop at Slovacic's off of I-35. I might have to stop there just to cool off because I can't believe that Belichick took this job. And if this girl is behind this, I'm going to be pissed. That's it. That's all. We'll see you tomorrow.
It's the Sousa Show. Sports.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And you know we always family no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it did.
So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe
more relaxed. What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.